Hey guys, my name is Stefan and it's time for another art critique session for the month of August. And before we start, just the quick information about what this is about. So if you are an aspiring artist or illustrator or digital creative of any kind and you would like some tutoring, some advice on your steps, your next steps in your career, or specific advice on your artworks and illustrations, yeah, have a look at the description. There's a link to my Patreon, and members of the Golden Plastic Pen get once a month a short video critique of their work by me. So if you think that my 10 plus years of experience could be of any help for you, check it out. And I would love to welcome you to the Art Critique Club in the next month. And I once again have my two ongoing apprentices here who sent me their work for me to critique, to give them constructive feedback. And these two guys are Sirius and Dan. Thanks guys once again for sticking with me in August. Okay guys, so let's get started. Sirius and Dan, so let's have a look at what you sent me this month. Let's start with Sirius Crocodile. You sent me an animation this time, so not only still image but an animation, so it looks like I have to charge you double, right? Because I have to give you critique on the animation and the drawing. No, that's of course complete bullshit. I love that you sent it to me actually, because I love animation and I love animating myself. So yeah, totally great to have this to give you feedback and to roast your artwork a little bit here. So let's have a look first at the animation. So there's this nice box that is also a house, and then there's a lot of stuff coming out of it, and well, there's a lot of things moving, and yeah, lots of motion in there. Great. Let's wait until the moon and and it's going back again as well. Nice. So lovely animation, man. So first of all, first impression is that it's fantastic that you have so much motion in there, so much moving elements that kind of the eye and the viewer are really surprised by the complexity, so that's great. As you know, my style is also based heavily on details, which means that complexity and details are a stylistic element that you can use in your work to surprise and to positively overwhelm viewer, and I think that's what you did really nicely here. I don't know how to loop this actually. There should be an option. I would love to loop it, but I have to play it again manually, but that's fine, I guess. So let's have a look at, I wanted to say something first about the perspective. One thing that's really technical feedback from me now, but one thing that totally pops to my eyes is that the perspective of these windows is a little bit weird. So you would expect here in this area, you would expect to see like the border of the inner part of the window when you look top down on this box slash house. Now it is, of course, I think it could be, let me know, but I think it also could be a stylistic element that you have some kind of MC Escher vibes in here to play with the perspective. If that's the case, please ignore that, because it is a lovely element to play with. And I see that you have that here in the stairs as well. I feel like from the concept, you could be even more, like you could play that card, if you use it as a stylistic element, you could play that card a little bit heavier, a little bit more actually, because when we use, I mean, first of all, when we all learned how to draw, the first things are of course stuff like anatomy, perspective, and like how to represent the reality in our work in the best and most realistic way, right? So making a realistic reality kind of. And then there's a certain moment where after you learn how to do it right, there's a moment in many artists' careers where they go like, okay, I learned how to do it, but now I give a total shit about this, and I put it all, like all the realistic things I learned, put it in a box and throw it out of the window. And this is great because you see, like, there's this style. It's a bit of a, like, most people hate this style a little bit. This corporate illustration style where you have these people that have like super small heads but super thick arms and legs and are like wobbly, chunky kind of. So you have this, and you also have this MC Escher perspective thing that everyone loves, but doesn't work with realistic perspective as well. And the longer I look at this, the more I feel like you wanted this to, you wanted to have this here as well. So when I look at this part here, I think that's also kind of coming from behind and leaning into the foreground in a way that is definitely not realistic. Yeah, so screw that, cross that from the list. So that's with the windows. That was obviously intended, but I think you can even play this card a little bit more, because I feel like you're sometimes a little bit inconsequent with with using this stylistic direction here. I don't have a specific part where I would say you should add this even more, but I feel like with, for example, with using the solid dark areas, like here in the windows there, here in the doors, I think you could probably create a much more impactful, surprisingly impactful effect by using, for example, more of the solid darks, and also push the whole perspective thing a little bit to the limit. Because I feel like when you look at the house here in the background, this part here, I feel like this is kind of, the stairs are not in the right perspective, you see that, and then the house has a different angle, so everything is kind of leaning to the left, and then suddenly this house is leaning to the right, which is fine, but you could use this leaning to the right, like going into the wrong direction kind of thing. You could do this probably a little bit more often here in the foreground as well, so you don't only have it there in the background, but pick it up in more elements, for example. So that's that. The animation itself is fantastic. I love it. I love how, for example, this thing here kind of shoves in between the two layers here, and you don't really expect that to happen. For example, here this comes like out of the box, and this could be, for example, I could imagine this being even more extreme. For example, imagine this thing here kind of first like completely flapping out of the box, like kind of going completely over the edge here on the right, and then kind of bouncing back into the position. And for example, probably, I mean, this is really hard to animate actually. So this is just a crazy idea that is hard to do without like in this kind of basic animation style, but it could, for example, first be behind the whole thing and then come out and go in front, so it changes kind of the layers. But that's not so easy. It's possible, but that's not so easy to animate. It's a bit of pro animation skills needed, but yeah. And from kind of the nitpicking part of my criticizing skills, what I really do not like personally, it's a bit of my personal preference, but what I really do not like to see is different line weights. And this is so hard. Usually if you work with vector animations, for example, and you have a line weight and then you scale the objects. I know this is kind of, even in level A, like level A plus productions, you see this when something is scaled and the line weight is changing as well. But in this case here, you should be perfectly able to keep the same line weight because you do not have any scaling going on. And for example, here on the house in the back, I see the line weight is a little bit, like the lines are just a little bit thinner than here, for example, in this area. And this is something that kind of distracts me a little bit. And I find this personally a little bit sad because it's such a nice animation, and then there's kind of this very, very avoidable thing with the lines. It's only a little bit, but my very trained eye does see that. So that's something I would probably try to level out. I feel like the line thickness could be all like here in the corner here. I think this is probably this, and this here is the thickest version. I think you can try to make it this thick everywhere, because it gets a little bit more grounded, the whole thing, and I guess it will benefit from a little, like, just use this thickness as for all the objects, and just have a look how it, yeah, just see how it looks. And I'd be very curious about the overall vibe. But that's, yeah, like I mentioned, it's really kind of a very small detail here, but it could make the whole thing look more consistent, more like out of one box, and not kind of as we have so many elements here, not kind of thrown together like so many elements, like just randomly combined. So that's that. Let's play the animation again. You probably know that yourself, but some of the animations look a little bit like could be a bit more softer, or have this more realistic feedback. So for example, when it starts, it all looks a bit fast, so it looks really fast to me. And it also, I think you could like stretch the animation a little bit more. I like that it's so busy, so that's please try to keep this super busy impression, so that there's such a lot of things happening at once. But I feel like it could be a bit longer and kind of evolve a little bit more in a more elegant way, you know? So the box opens and the first movement is more like slowly starting and then kind of evolving, and have this kind of, that you see in motion design a lot, this bouncy effect. So it starts slow and then you have this floop effect. Sorry for this very professional description of this effect, like this throwing. Yeah, no, I'm just joking around. Yeah, but I hope you know what I mean. So I can send you to some examples as well. But I feel like the animations are, yeah, could just be a little bit softer and a little bit more balanced out in the terms of the timing. And you see, for example, that you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds. That's so long. Like, you have 10 seconds here where not so much is happening. Only the flower is moving, the eye, and the moon. So 10 seconds is super long. Try to stretch this animation here longer, and like with a little bit more bouncing and timing in it. And then the part where it just stays there should be kind of 2 or 3 seconds maybe, or make it half as long, make it 5. But that's enough, because, you know, I mean, its attention spans are super low, and 10 seconds without any much movement will people lose interest. Sad as it is, but it is this way. We have to just deal with it. So yeah, and I think, yeah, I think that's it. 10 minutes are over as well, but yeah, that's I think what should put this animation, which is very nice. Love the style. So I think you should explore this style in general further, definitely. But if you pay attention to these kind of 3 or 4 points that I just told you, I'm pretty confident that this will make another good step forward. All right, next up is Dan. So Dan sent me this piece here, telling me that this is your first attempt to become more painterly, I hope to get more freedom in the process when I don't need line art. Yeah, that's a nice leap over, or yeah, it's definitely a challenging leap over, and one, for example, that I personally also always find very, very hard, because you have your line art and feel kind of secure in it, and when you step out of drawing lines and filling them with colors, you kind of can lose the grip and the security of the lines that give you the structure, right? So that's probably what you experienced as well. At least that's how I personally experienced this step over. And I mean, my style personally is of course very much based on lines and outlines, but I also did a lot of illustrations in without like outlines, or not only with outlines that had this painterly style. And let's see, so yeah, feel free to add some more information after I send out the critique, because I would love to know if your personal goal is also to get less outline-ish and more painterly. So let's have a look here. Let's focus on that first, but probably I can give you a couple of more things and hand you some more advice there. But let's focus on this painterly stuff, because I see you tried this here in the background with the clouds and the trees here in the back. So we have these areas here, and also we have this fog over this little lake or pond. I see you're also trying this a little bit in the kind of intersections between outline and flat fill and painterly thing that you do here, or for example here in the shadows or in the shading as well. So what I see here is that you're trying to incorporate this painterly look both with like completely outline free areas and also within the boundaries of outlines. That's probably the best description here. And I think on the clouds and here on the trees it's great. And also what you do really nicely is to create this kind of distant effect. So you have a nice blue overlay here that tells us as the viewer that there is like not a very clear or clean air, and which is fantastic to display the distance here between the character and the trees. So that's what you're doing very nicely. And I also like the slight difference here in the background where you have these what we see in when we see in the distance, and there's a day that has this kind of weird air and very, very unclear, undefined clouds in the background. So I think you managed to display this here in a very, very nice manner, and also these little differences here in the sky, very cool. And also the clouds here are nice, although I think that it depends a little bit on what your idea was here, but it looks like we're either extremely high on an extremely high mountain, and there's kind of a cloud up, like hanging in this mountain, but it looks like as if the cloud were like in front of the trees here, even though we don't see that. But I feel like that the cloud is closer to the viewer than the trees, which is a bit weird. So you could try to make either the trees here a little less desaturated and bluish, or put this more on the cloud, or another nice idea, put some trees here so we see that the trees are in front of the clouds and everything is better understandable for the viewer. But of course, I don't know what your intention was here. Maybe you wanted to show a super foggy kind of top of the hill, or a very high place where clouds are kind of surrounding the hill. Then it's okay, but still you wouldn't see clouds in this way. I guess it's more like smoke here in this case, but the modeling of the cloud and the rendering is nice. I like these parts here where you get a bit rough with hard edges, but these hard edges are so great in defining a shape and make it so nice and painterly, you know. That's what I really love here. And I think you could like adapt this way of painting which shows me a bit more confidence as well, compared to here in these areas that look more like that you, or here as well, that look more like you were a bit more insecure. So this looks like a real confident part of the painting here, whereas here I feel like you were not so sure if your decision to paint in there was right or not, and you didn't go all the way, you know, you didn't go all the kind of, I am a painter now and I'm taking a rough brush. And let me quickly just pick a brush here. So I just picked a super random paint brush, but I guess, I don't know, this has a bit soft edges, but I think you guess what you know what I mean. So you can really kind of be more brave here in blending in a couple of more colors as well, and just be a little more free on the painting side. This looks super shit now. So that was not at all what I intended. I'm not a painter. I'm more drawing expert, but create more sharp edges here. Don't be afraid to be a bit rough here in some parts. I think you can really kind of let go a little more to create this painterly impression. Same on the water, for example. If you have like the deeper parts of the water here, don't be afraid to go real dark here and create these really sharp contrasts here. Yeah, sorry that I messed this up so hard, but I hope you know what I mean. I would need a couple of minutes to figure this out correctly, but in the end, probably just take the brush you have here in the clouds and do the same in the water, and also the grass here, and probably even the roofs. I mean, you have a more detailed area here, so it will be a bit more difficult to add this texture here without making it look weird. But even there, you can try and play around. I mean, it's all about experimenting and trying like how far you can push this kind of style in the end. So that's I guess that's the great thing about digital painting, right? So you can just experiment and go over the top as well, because sometimes we have to go over the top to find like the right balance in the end. And on the fog here, for example, I feel a little bit the same. Oops. That you can go a little more extreme here and really make it kind of place. This boat here is placed a little bit weirdly, so I would probably place this boat just here and make it stick out of the fog a little bit, so it kind of, you know, it sticks out here a little bit. It just comes out of the fog, and then you have the opportunity to, for example, here go really more dense on the fog, really kind of make this very thick, so it frames. Could try to even add some here, so it frames. Oh, I don't want to paint over your signature here, so it frames the image a bit better, and gives it kind of an introduction in a visual way, in a compositional way. So that's that when it comes to the painterly stuff. And if we kind of have the more dark water here in these areas, some kind of nice reflections here. You can also add like a reflection of the girl here, for example, put some colors here that are a reflection of her clothes, so that to give a cool, nice. I mean, reflections and mirrors are always really cool and impressive, in my opinion. And you have a nice opportunity to do this here a little bit more here with the stones as well. So let the moss here reflect a little bit, and it will all look like, it doesn't have to be realistic, right? It's just about like giving a more convincing overall look without like with at the same time absolutely staying in your painterly approach. That's completely fine. Just adding some more details here and there that make it more convincing. Here, by the way, is a weird tangent, so make this probably more like this. And then I said like you could add some trees here that go over there to have this clouds. You can also kind of add more clouds here, but just let the trees go over it a little bit, and you have don't have the kind of weird thing in the brains of your recipients that the clouds are too close. And I wanted to, like, last thing I wanted to, this is lots of small details, I know, so this time it's again in the details, but I wanted to add one more thing, and this is, I think this is great because, this is a great, and I think this is one of the great parts of being like an ongoing apprentice here in my critique club, and sending me your work every month, because now I can see like your development and also kind of your preference when it comes to perspective. And what I see lately, or what I see in your work, like mostly actually, is that you have, when it comes to composition, you have this kind of 2D approach, something that probably comes from playing kind of platformer video games, so kind of 2.5 or 2D video games. But what I mean is that you have a very clear layering. So this character is on this platform, then you have like the platform here in the foreground. So this is kind of 2.5D thing, and then we have here these very clear layered shapes. And what I think, I mean, you had this, for example, you had this scene where this guy was in the space train, this thing that looked like a underground train, but that was floating in space or something. So you were experimenting with perspectives there a lot, and I would, if I were you, I would try to keep this approach of experimenting with perspective, because you see in these houses here, it's nice to convey a distance between these houses, for example, but they still look very, very flat, and somehow the composition is less interesting than it could be, in my opinion. And I feel like you could really kind of try to tilt the perspective a little bit and make it less super static in this 2D terms of viewpoint, and go away from, like, we're now at the level of the girl here, so probably go a bit higher, go a little bit tilt a little bit to the side, so probably we have like a very, very slightly higher perspective of the houses, kind of being that you can see the houses a little bit from the side, just a little bit, not a bird's perspective. This is probably too extreme what I'm doing here, but, and you see the girl here or so, the pond here. Give this whole thing a bit more depth actually, and a little tilt. So I think this would really, this piece here would really benefit from it. I know this is not a piece of critique that is easily to do here, because you would have to redraw it, all of it, but maybe for your next coming artworks that you're going to do, maybe focus a little bit on this aspect of making it not too easy for yourself in terms of perspective. So I think you kind of going a little bit into a comfort zone, and try to not lean into this comfort zone here too much. So that's it for today, Dan. Thanks again very much. Already looking forward to see yours and also serious pieces for September. I'm really kind of enjoying these critiques very much. And once again, if you watched until the end, and if you're not then or serious and you still watch this critique, if you find that I give valuable feedback to the guys here, and if you want that for yourself and want some concrete tips and concrete advice, what you could do next and what you could improve on specific parts of your art, join my club, join the Critique Club on Patreon, and yeah, let's get you on the next level. See you end of September, beginning of October, again in the Critique Club. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. See you soon.